What I see is the biggest difference, especially between Tadej and Jonas, is his ability to maintain a high cadence for a very long time. The cadence is unbelievable.
Everybody, welcome back to the Move Plus. I'm Spencer Martin here with Johan Bruyneel. We are going to rip through a few topics of the week and then get to a few listener questions that were sent in to info@wedo.team. Send yours in if you want to be featured on next week's episode. First, Johan, I'm going to ask you about these Tom Pidcock to Q36.5, I guess, reporting / rumors. It would seem like it was locked in last week. This week has gone by and it's not, things have not, there's been no press release that it's official. Mm-hmm. Have you been hearing anything about this move? Is it getting closer to the finish line? I heard confidentially from someone that they were trying to get it wrapped up as quickly as possible. So the fact that it's not tells you that there's potentially other suitors coming out of the woodwork.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've talked about it in our last podcast already. There's nothing new. As far as I'm aware of, listen, the rumors are there. So obviously, I mean, we heard that there have been talks. I still maintain my same hypothesis from last week is that Pidcock is not happy at Ineos. Ineos is not happy with Pidcock. They want to get rid of the expensive contract, and they're looking for solutions. I think that's where we stand. Q36.5. They have said that they were interested. The question is, how eager are they to sign him, and how eager are they to pay a lot of money? Probably not the totality of his contract, but I still think it's the same situation. Now, what I did read, however, is that there may be other candidates who are interested in Tom Pidcock. As I said, he's one of the biggest talents in cycling. I've also read a report actually from a Belgian newspaper. There's a Belgian newspaper, and they have a section. It's the spy in the peloton. So they have like an anonymous professional cyclist reporting to the newspaper with news. This person, I don't know who it is. He's active rider right now. Said that the rumor within the peloton is that Tom Pidcock is a little island within the team. He's operating on his own. He has, personal mechanic, personal doctor, personal person for everything. And that there was at some point last year, and this might have been the beginning of the problems. At the end of the season, Ineos didn't allow Pidcock to go race mountain bike in Canada. Apparently, they made that very clear, and he ignored those instructions and went over there anyway. And I think that's when it started to become a frictional relationship, I would say. That's the information I got from that Belgian newspaper. I've been reading the last few days that the team Tudor might team up also with Red Bull. Red Bull is, we all know, the title sponsor of Red Bull Bora, but I think there may be a partnership, probably not an official sponsorship, at least not in the name, but there may be a collaboration with Red Bull, and that Red Bull would be interested, of course, in getting Pidcock on board. So Tudor seems to be a rumor now that they may be interested. I don't know if it's true or not. Let's not forget, they invested heavily in Alaphilippe and Hirschi, reportedly both very big contracts, plus 3 million for both each. So
that's a lot of money to pay for those two riders.
That's a lot of money. So, to add another at least 3 million contract to that, I'm not saying it's impossible, because, it would require a phone call to one of the funders of the team, and, basically that guy writing a check which is separate of the budget. Don't know. For the moment, I'm still going to stick with Tom Pidcock going to Q36.5. That's still my gut feeling. And then, it's to be seen how that has an impact on the situation of the team, Q36.5, to get a wild card in one of the Grand Tours. Maybe complicated, especially with the competition. We all know that Lotto, Destiny, and Israel Premier Tech, they have automatic wildcards for the Tour at least. They have them for the 3 Grand Tours and all the World Tour races, but Lotto last season decided to not do the Giro. That's probably why Tudor got in. I think if Pidcock goes to Q36.5, it's a long-term project, and it should be. It's probably not going to have an impact straight away on the starting rights of the team, Q36.5. But if they have serious big plans, I would see it as a 3-4 year plan, and adding a guy like Pidcock, and if they can convince him to focus on becoming a full-time road professional, I think it could be a good decision.
Yeah, and just to back this up, so also we should say Mark Hirschi getting paid $3 million a year might sound like a lot. Do you know where he's ranked currently in the rider rankings?
He's top 10. I haven't checked, but he's for sure top 10.
He's 6th. He's a points machine. So that's a little rich for what I would want to pay for him, but for a team that's trying to get into the top 2 of the pro, I guess what do they call it, the pro team division now, that's not a terrible pickup. Alaphilippe, I could quibble with that a little bit more. But
I think you're right, Spencer. Hirschi, he had an amazing season, So, unfortunately for Tudor, he doesn't bring the points with him. So they will have to rely on his performances in 2025 to get points that count for the team. Typically, if you have a guy who has such an amazing season, the season afterwards, it's difficult to confirm. Definitely going to be very difficult to do the same. But hey, if he does half of it, it's still going to be a lot of points. I agree with you. I don't think Alaphilippe will score that many points, although he's still a very good rider. But I think the prime Alaphilippe, we have seen him already. Tudor has obviously plans to go to the Grand Tours. Probably their big gamble is to get a Tour de France wild card. I think they may succeed for 2025, especially because Tudor, as a sponsor, also is known to get really involved in sponsoring the events. They did the same with the Giro. They were the official timekeeper for the Giro. Let's see if Tudor next year becomes the official timekeeper of the Tour, or maybe Rolex. I've been told it's the same company. So who knows? There's definitely a lot of money behind that team also.
Well, that would make the money make a little bit more sense. And just here while we're on the topic, Tom Pidcock ranked 31st in points. Doesn't score a lot of points, especially for what you're paying for him. I'm going to check that to make sure I'm right. Sorry. Yeah, 31st is correct. But just to sum up what you said, the situation with Ineos cannot continue. They don't want to continue to pay him the money they're paying him. He wants more freedom. So we need him to leave. He has a contract through 2027. Who can take on this contract? I guess a few teams could. There's not many, though. And then second part of that question, who has the space to accommodate him and his goals and his entourage? This word entourage keeps popping up. Like, this entourage must make itself known. Like Geraint Thomas has mentioned it. You've been mentioning it for a year. It was the spy in the peloton mentioned it. So this entourage must be substantial, and I guess I don't want to be rude, but probably disruptive to the team and how they want to run things. But Q36.5, I guess, makes sense because they could afford him. Probably Ineos would have to pay 1-2 million euros of that contract just for him to leave. But then they're saving 2, 3, 4, whatever he's making this year. And they just laid off Sir Alex Ferguson, probably the most famous manager in the history of English football, from his chairman emeritus role. They're paying him £2 million a year. They're slimming down. Like, they're serious about saving money. They're going to look for $1 million here, $1 million there. So that kind of makes sense. Here's the landing spot I have questions about. And maybe Tom Pidcock likes this, because if they don't get invited to a lot of races, he can focus more on cyclocross, focus more on mountain bike. Maybe he wants that. But I'm just going to read you the wild cards to the last, the 3 Grand Tours this year. Giro was Polti Cometo. That's an Italian team. Second one was VF Group Bardiani. And there's only 2 wildcard teams now, so it's harder and harder to get wildcard invites. Both of those are Italian teams. Tudor gets in because Lotto turns down their invite, like you mentioned. So that's big for Tudor. That's huge because they wouldn't have gotten into a Grand Tour probably without that. The Tours, Uno X, pretty good. They're the 3rd best second division team. Total Energy, they're a French team. So there's always going to be a French team that gets a wildcard invite. Lotto and Israel or IPT, whatever they're calling themselves these days, picks up their options. They get in. Volta is Euskadal Euskadi. Like, that's a Spanish team. They're going to get in. Equipo Kern Pharma is the second one. They get in. They do a great job. So they maybe get invited back, but there's more Spanish second division teams than can be invited. So they're going to have to rotate those. If you're not a Spanish team, you're not getting invited. Basically, Q36.5.
Let's not forget one thing, Spencer. You know, there are. I don't think there's any specific set rule that, you know, certain organizers, they will ask for. I mean, let's say if they want to get another, if Spain, for example, Tour of Spain, right? If they normally they have to take next year, they have to take Caja Rural and Burgos BH because it's a rotation. Now, I don't see how they can leave Kern Pharma out. You know, they won 3 stages. They may ask for an exception and, you know, add another team. And I will definitely say yes.
Are you sure? Are they cracking down on that because doesn't that undercut the whole project of promotion relegation because they want the stakes to be so high that if you're not earning points, you also have to be in the top 30 of points earners of all teams to even be eligible to get a wildcard invite, which might be a problem for Q36.5. Actually, hold on a second.
Yeah, let's not forget. You know, the I'm just talking about the Vuelta. You know, the Vuelta is owned by ASO. ASO is the Tour de France. Tour de France is the biggest power in cycling. The president of the International Cycling Federation is French. So, you know, if they want it to happen, it's going to happen. They don't care if it's in the rules or not. They'll change them.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe. I mean, it could be good for the sporting. I just have a hard time believing, like, is ASO really sitting around thinking, like, how can we help out these small Spanish teams? Like, they probably are thinking, how can we help ASO? I mean, maybe someone makes a donation and they get in, which is where Q36.5 could come in. Basically, my point is he's probably not racing a Grand Tour if he goes to Q36.5. Maybe if he goes to Tudor, that's a lot of redundant riders, but we should say any other team that can afford him is going to have a lot of redundant riders. Red Bull, a lot of redundancy there. Who else would even be interested that has the money? Not many other teams.
I saw Visma has shown interest, but I don't know if that's true or not. Anyway, you know, at the end of the day, it's kind of, you know, ironic. Pidcock is not wanted anymore at his team, and he is in a great position because he has a guaranteed contract if he wants to stay.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's different suitors, you know, on the horizon that want him. So he's in a good position.
They call that negotiation. They call that BATNA, best alternative to negotiate agreement. He can just sit on his behind and say, what are you guys going to offer me? What can you do for me? Because if nothing changes, I get paid a lot of money through 2027. So if the team goes under, they have to pay me out anyway. On the topic of second division teams, Uno X signs Olav Alexander Boo, who is Christian Blumenfeld's triathlon coach. Like, he's probably, if you don't follow triathlon, like, Blumenfeld is doing things no one thought was possible in triathlon. And Boo has the Norwegian training method, which is all the rage and endurance training circles. So that's notable. That just shows you. I mentioned that to say, like, the level of these second division teams is getting so high. Like, they're hiring some of the best sports scientists, and they won't even get invited to a Grand Tour next year. So it's cutthroat at that second division level. I actually wouldn't want to be. It actually is a testament to Lotto Destiny, what they've done and been able to score so many points at that level with the resources they have. The other part of that is Christian Blumenfeld kind of teased that he was going to go into cycling and wanted to win the Tour, and then has now come out and said, actually, the money wasn't good enough, so I'm not going to do it. But that strikes me as a little odd, since you think that's something you would have like cross-referenced before you did a public campaign about how you're going to go to pro cycling.
Yeah, well, I think Blumenfeld obviously, changed his mind during the Olympics or after the Olympics. I've always said that his ambition to become a Tour de France winner is not going to happen. It's not possible. Not in today's cycling. He's not the youngest anymore. He can't make that transfer. And even if he would be able to do it physically, then his lack of experience in road races would never. I mean, he can never make up for that. Interesting to see his coach to go to UNOX. It shows that UNOX has big plans. They have a long-term vision, and they have money. Since I think quite some things changed also since Thor Hushovd took over the management. So they're quite aggressive. They also signed a 10-year deal with Ridley, by the way, a 10-year deal with Ridley, the bike manufacturer. So that's unheard of in cycling. And I think I've saw somewhere, I'm not confirmed, that Blumenfeld would actually also venture into cycling through UNOX. So I don't know if that's true or not.
This might have been a dream you had. I can't find any.
I'll find it. I'll find it and send it to you.
Okay.
That would involve also that he would need to, stop his contract with Giant, the bike manufacturer, and that he would be on Ridley. But I don't know. Interesting to see that. It's also okay. The coach, what's his name? Alex.
Olav Alexander Boo.
Okay. He's obviously knows what he's doing, but there's no.
Sorry, Alexander, not Alec, Alexander Boo.
Yeah. So, the Norwegian method. At the end of the day, there's not really any secret. Everybody knows how they're training and what they're doing. But it shows how ambitious UNOX is as a team and as a project. So. We'll see if that has an impact on. They're already top team. I think personally, I think they're a little bit limited in their potential, because they limit themselves to basically Scandinavians, mostly Norwegians, and a few Danes. That's obviously puts a break on their potential, because there's a lot more talent outside of those countries, and if you have to go exclusively with one or two nationalities, it's difficult to be top everywhere. But yeah, interesting development.
No love for the Swedes. I don't want to wade into any geopolitical waters here, but yeah, it's like, what's going on? There's no one on bikes over there, but it is kind of, I actually like that setup that it is so nationalistic, because it gives a chance, it really develops riders from those countries. If they could get the best Danish riders, though, they're winning the Tour potentially. Yeah. If they could get Jonas to come over, I'm sure they've had meetings about that. Mm-hmm. Before we move on, you've teed us up perfectly with Ridley. I just want to put a pin in the Pidcock conversation. I'm looking at Q36.5's race schedule for 1 days from this last year. Potentially does actually match up decently well. They do 2 monuments, Flanders, Roubaix. If they have Pidcock, maybe they would get invited to Liège, Lombardia, San Remo, perhaps, and then a lot of semi-classics and some decent one-day races. So, maybe that is what he's looking for. A little bit more elbow room to focus on mountain bike, a team that's going to pay him a lot of money to showcase their bikes, probably Pinarello at some point. Maybe not as outlandish as I originally thought, but to go into Ridley, Lotto Destiny, DSTNY, we're still unsure what that company is. Destiny's leaving the sponsorship after this year. They're no longer going to be on board. Mm-hmm. There's been some, reporting. I thought I read a piece and then I couldn't find it, about how they're even having riders pay for their own travel because they're out of money. Stefan Hulot, the GM, has struck back at this, saying this is not true. Maybe spicier language than that. So I don't want to comment on it too much further until he comes out and says anything. But I mentioned that because they had Ridley's last year in a long-term relationship with them. Apparently, Arnaud Delis, their star young sprinter, didn't want to ride Ridley's, and they didn't have a favorable deal with Ridley. They weren't getting paid a enough money to continue riding them. It was hurting their budget. Ridley leaves because they want to be on Orbea's, allegedly. And now it's interesting to me that Ridley's signing with probably one of the most scientifically driven teams in the peloton. So can you help us square that circle, Johan? Like, why is UnoX picking up Ridley? Or was Lotto wrong to get rid of them?
I think the decision of Lotto to stop collaborating with Ridley, although they still have a contract. So I think, it was mainly because it's a very old deal that was actually renewed a few years ago, 3-4 years ago, by the former manager John Lalonde. And as far as I have been informed, it was a deal where it was a great deal for Ridley. It was basically supplying the equipment, and there was no money attached. No,
which is
zero,
which is unheard of, basically.
So, I've been in negotiations with some bike brands in the past, and somebody must have had a pretty good check under the table, in my opinion, to sign that deal. Because normally, nowadays for a bike brand, I think it's 3 million minimum, 3 million euros to be the sponsor of a first division team. I think the decision was basically, first of all, financial, but there was also complaints from riders. They changed to Orbea. I've heard that the riders are very happy with Orbea. And that Orbea is also working on making a lot of progress in all different kinds of bike frames and models. If Ridley goes to UnoX, first of all, they make a long-term commitment, which goes together with the philosophy of the team. I cannot imagine that there's no money involved in the sponsorship, but UnoX is also a very powerful company. They have a lot of money if they want to spend it on the sport. So it might be that they're more buying into the vision and the willingness to cooperate and develop the best bike. Who knows? Rather than focusing on the money, because if Ridley doesn't pay 3 million and they pay 1.5, they can say, well, whatever, we'll pay that. We'll pay the other 1.5. It doesn't really hurt us as a company. So, I was surprised to see that collaboration for 10 years between Ridley and UnoX, actually.
Hey, everybody. I want to tell you about a new sponsor we have here at The Move, which is Here.com. If you've ever been frustrated with hearing loss, Here.com is exactly where you need to go. These guys are the real deal. They've got an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, a 4.9 rating at Consumer Affairs, and over 500,000 people are already loving their super tiny, super powerful German hearing aids. 500,000, that is a lot. And the glowing reviews keep rolling in. Take Jerry, for example. He wrote in saying that the in-home exam made everything so convenient and his new devices are extremely comfortable compared to the old ones. Or James, who called working with Here.com a total win and said it's one of the best investments he's ever made. The best part, with insurance, flexible financing options, and 100% money-back guarantee, Here.com makes getting great hearing aids super easy. So if you're ready to stop saying what and start hearing the world again clearly, now is the time. So right now at here.com/move, not the move, our listeners can sign up for an exclusive 45-day no-risk trial so you can hear the difference for yourself. So what are you waiting for? Head to here.com/move. That's HEAR.com/move, not the move today to get that offer. All right, now back to the show. Well, now that I think about it, I don't know if I want to say the name of the company. The company they're on, when I was at the tour this summer, you could tell UnoX probably had maybe not the fastest bike at the tour. It's potentially Ridley's better than their current sponsor performance-wise. So they figure, we'll get some money and it's a better bike. They're like working their way up the ladder. I don't know. But the more I think about it, is I actually personally kind of like the bikes that they ride, but I can't imagine they're any faster than a Ridley. And then who knows?
Ridley's not top of the game either, but it's also not that easy to find because all the good brands, they're all tied up already, and they're investing a lot of money, and there's a war between the big bike brands to be, who can they sponsor, or who will allow them to sponsor which team. So that's another war that's going on, another race between the big bike brands. So I personally think they bought more into the long-term vision, and that's always something that you can, as a bike brand, you can say, okay, we have this vision, and we want to do this and this, and so let's work on it together.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I trust Ineos. I probably am too biased towards them. They're my favorite team in the peloton. I really like their project. I like their long-term vision. Speaking of bikes, speaking of teams, just quickly, Astana, they were supposed to have some massive Chinese sponsor come on board. Bike brand? ? I'd never heard of the bikes before.
Bike manufacturer or carbon manufacturer.
Carbon manufacturer. Okay. Where is that? Like, they're not signing any big signings. Cavendish is leaving. Apparently they tried to get Caleb Ewan, didn't get Caleb Ewan. I don't know. For just a little bit of background, like if you remember, Lamprey went under, was supposed to be bought by Wanda Corporation, massive Chinese company. Didn't happen. Oh, sorry. It was like the fax didn't, our faxist was sick and we couldn't send the fax through. They get picked up by UAE. The rest is history. A little bit outside of cycling, Inter Milan and AC Milan, bought by two major Chinese companies, never actually put any money into the teams, and both teams kind of go into the bankruptcy, have to get bought by private equity firms in the US. I don't know. I've seen this. I just feel like I've seen this movie with these Chinese investments, and as they talk a big game, and then there's never actually, like, the money never actually shows up. That's why I'm a little skeptical of this Astana.
What I know is that there's been negotiations. There's probably an agreement with this carbon manufacturer from China. Now, the problem is that this, Astana, Kazakhstan is a Kazakh licensed team owned by I think the Cycling Federation of Kazakhstan or even the government. This sponsorship from China will not happen if the license changes hands. Right now, I think there's a rule in China that no money can be invested or leave the country if it's not because of a Chinese company who has the ownership. So I've been told that the deal between the Chinese and whoever's in charge of the Kazakh team, Astana, is not signed. There's no signature. They've made some moves by trying to get some riders on board, basically in a panic maneuver to get points. For example, very surprisingly, Bettiol changed teams in August all of a sudden, like immediately, because they need points, because as it stands now, 2026, Astana is not going to have a World Tour license. Even if they bring guys on board and they start to earn points, I think the gap is already too big. They'll need a miracle season next year, and somebody from the World Tour top 18 to perform really poorly for them to get in the top 18. So then the question is the Chinese funder going to buy into that, right? Are they going to agree? If they want a team, they want to have a top team, a first division team, and be guaranteed to participate in all the races. Now, if they're relegated, they're probably first or second in the pro teams, and they can still participate in the same situation like Lotto, Destiny, and Israel. But to me, it's unclear, and from what I've been told, it's not signed. So we have to wait and see.
They're 5,000 points out of a World Tour spot, and they have to make that up next year. That's very hard to do, potentially impossible, which explains the holdup. The next one, speaking of China, Tour of Guangxi. First of all, there's Tour of Guangxi going on right now. You cannot watch it in the United States. It's actually hard. If you miss it, it's on in the middle of the night. It's actually very hard to find a recording of it, even an illegal one. So I'm going a little bit off just strange. You can there's YouTube channels that are like just live images of pictures of cities in the region, and sometimes they show the racing. So I haven't seen the whole thing. There's also these Italian races.
It's been 4 bunch sprints. It's been 4 bunch sprints. So,
and I need to see those. There's also the Italian racing going on, like Giro di Veneto or the Veneto Classic. Basically, all you need to know so far, Israel Premier Tech is absolutely crushing it. Like they're winning multiple. They've won in Italy and in China multiple times this week. If you have a really good memory, you'll remember they won the first World Tour race of the year, Tour Down Under. I don't know if they'll win the GC at Tour of Guangxi, but they've won 2 stages. They do have Joe Blackmore there, who's very good, could win the GC if things fall his way. They've quietly had an incredible season.
Yeah.
No thanks to their highest paid rider. They have 29 wins so far, by the way. And then I should say, just want to make sure I give them credit. They're currently ranked 12th in points, which is very good. And then impressively, they're the second division team behind Lotto, who's 9th, who just has an amazing depth of talent on that team. But they're doing this no thanks to their highest paid rider, Chris Froome, who is at the Tour of Guangxi. I did not know he was racing, Johan, until you texted me about him. Like he's invisible. And the amazing thing about Chris Froome is he's getting worse. Like every race, it seems like he's worse than the race before.
Yeah. You know what? I mean, I'm, well, first of all, whoever signed that deal for Froome, I would say great job to his manager, to his agent. Great job. And incredibly bad job to the person who signed that, deal. Reportedly 5-year contract, 5 million euros per year initially. I think it's been renegotiated for the last 2 years. But anyways, it's that's just a bad decision. Listen, the fact that Ineos let him go so easily was, I think, already a red flag. Because if you have a guy who's won the Tour de France 4 times and that's your main promise to because if he recovers fully from his accident, Chris Froome would still be at a very high level. Of course, we all know the accident was terrible in the Dauphiné or before the Dauphiné. It was, there's a before and after Chris Froome. To me, it's just sad to see. It's sad to see a legend like Chris Froome, who won 4 tours, 2 Vueltas, 1 Giro. To see this now, I mean, today I checked the results today in today's stage, which is a bunch sprint, by the way, a bunch sprint. Chris Froome finishes 110th in the stage, 25 minutes down. There's only 117 riders at the finish, and of all these riders behind him, I know nobody. Man, I mean, I don't know. I mean, he must like riding his bike a lot. And of course, if you get paid so much money, it's, it's okay, I'm just going through with this, and every week or every day, he's probably saying, okay, another day on the, jackpot. But it just, from it takes away from his legacy, I think. It's like, Chris Froome is a legend. And now everybody is basically looking at him and says, what is he doing? I mean, he's like, the other day I was watching that race. There was 8 guys in the breakaway, and we already knew that breakaway was not going to stay away. And the first guy who got dropped from the breakaway was Chris Froome. I mean, in front of the TV cameras. That's just, he must, I don't know. He says he loves what he's doing. He's already now publicly said that he keeps going next year. By the way, another year of 5 or 4 or 3 million, whatever it is. So it must drive the team owner crazy, in my opinion. But there's nothing he can do. He signed that deal, right? But Chris Froome said that, now he has already, made up his mind that he cannot win any more races, that he's in it to help his team and to motivate other riders and to see parts of the world he's never seen. I mean, wow. That's quite the statement. I mean, with all the respect I have for Chris Froome, but to me, it looks really sad to see him drag himself and, it's not that he's getting dropped in big races. He gets dropped in the small races. The same happened in the Tour of Rwanda. Same happens here now in this Chinese race. I mean, it's a world tour race, but he's getting dropped with guys from China. That's sad.
Yeah, and not that there's anything inherently wrong with that. It's just they're not good. They're not good cyclists. Oh. They're from China, and they also happen to not be good. And I was going to ask you, like, okay, renegotiated the deal. Why? Like that? To me, that's the big thing that sticks out. Like he clearly needs to do this, and the thing that, and I agree, legend, had a great career. The thing that really, I mean, dings the legacy for me is he's not honest about this. You know, for years it was like, I'm better than I've ever been. I think I'm going to win the Tour this year. If he came out and said, I had a really bad crash, it's hard for me to accept who I am, and I just need to do this for me. Like I feel like we could all kind of understand it more, but it's just this, you know, it was the same interview for 5 years of like, I'm better than I've ever been. I think I'm going to win the Tour this year. And it's like, well, that's just not being honest either with yourself or with us. But man, I can't believe he's doing this. I should say, though, the contract is amazing. And maybe I would do the same thing. If I was getting paid that amount of money to go ride around at the back of these races, maybe that's just too much to turn down.
I've heard that, was it last year or the year before? I don't remember. It's 2 years in a row now that they didn't take him to the Tour. I guess so.
Yes.
And so, you know, there was some kind of negotiation going on between the team management or team owners and Froome that, okay, you know, we'll take you to the Tour, but we need to renegotiate your contract, you know, down. And Froome said, okay, well, I'm not going to the Tour then. see you in August, you know?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not going to tell anyone not to make that much money, but like I'll always support labor over capital. But just the legacy terms, I agree. I mean, even being at the Tour this year, it was a little weird because he's in Monaco. He's not a part of the race at all. He's not featured at all. He's not racing. He can't even get into the VIP section. And you're like, man, you won this 4 times. Like you were on the top of this event through the mid 2010s. And it's crazy to see where he is. It's really jarring, actually.
Yeah, well, listen, at the end of the day, it's his decision. He signed that contract. You know, all of a sudden you're signing a document and you're looking at 25 million ahead of you. So now if he can get 20 million out of those 25, you know, I don't blame him. I mean, it's you know, it's
I do want to say
it's life altering decision.
It's a nice amount of money that I'm sure he feels like he's earned when he was a Tour winner that he didn't get paid at the time. It's also crazy to think that, remember, Geraint Thomas was his domestique, and like think of how their careers have diverged since 2019. Pretty wild.
Yeah.
So I think that's it for my topics. I will get to a few listener questions and then we will get out of here, Johan. And again, email them to info@wedo.team. and they'll send them over to us. The first one is from Oki in Darwin, Australia. I read this one first just because that is such a wild place that captures the imagination. I'd love to go to Darwin sometime, see some of the saltwater crocodiles. Hey guys, and thanks for a great podcast and YouTube channel. Question is, what is Jonas Vingegaard thinking of Tadej Pogačar's current form? Can he ever beat Poggy again? This is, I think, George might have written in. This might be George Hincapie's question. This is his always what he's asking, but I'm curious what you think about that, Johan. Like, what is his mindset at the moment around that?
I think he thinks he can beat him. You know, I mean, he beat him twice in a row. He will train his ass off for sure. You know, obviously one of the comments I've seen in the last week was, you know, because I said that I couldn't understand why Jonas wasn't racing anymore this year. Maybe that's what he's doing. He's just focusing completely on you know, changing his training, whatever, getting more power with different power training, whatever. He knows that he needs to step up if he wants to be a contender to Tadej. I'm pretty sure, like, the mind of these guys, I think Jonas is convinced that he can still beat him. You know, and you know, why not? Why not think that? You know, let's not forget. You know, it was a miracle. He was at the start of the Tour de France. You know, he came to the start after this really bad crash with minimal preparation, and he was, you know, until a certain moment, he was very close. even managed to beat him. He's one of the only riders this year who was able to beat Tadej Pogačar in a race that Pogačar wanted to win. That stage was a stage 11 in the Tour. So, he must think, okay, I need to basically work harder, stay healthy, not crash, and I can still beat him. I'm sure that he hasn't given up.
I agree. I do think he thinks he can still beat him, and I think he can. I think I said this before in a podcast. His biggest ally, other than him being incredible, probably potentially the best stage racer in the sport, is Pogacar's got all these dangling shiny things. Paris-Roubaix, Milano-Sanremo, that leaves a little bit of wedge open there, or like wedges things open for Vingegaard. So, I wouldn't be shocked if he wins the Tour next year. I know that's crazy to say coming off the season that Pogačar just had, but I wouldn't pencil him in as a Tour winner. But we're doing our outcomes for the Tour a little bit too early. Question number 2 from Sterling. This is a good question. I'm glad you sent this in. Why are there no more team time trials in the Grand Tours? Would having them have changed the outcome of this year's Grand Tours? Good point. Seems to me that if these are really team events, this exercise should be present.
Yeah, I agree. I think a team time trial has its place in the Tour de France and in the Grand Tours, and especially over a pretty good distance. Putting a team time trial in with 18 or 20 or 25 kilometers makes no sense. It needs to be a proper team time trial, like a longer event, like 40, 50K. I don't know why I don't know. I mean, it's clear that the gap between the really powerful teams with the best riders and for sure with the biggest budgets and the other teams is becoming bigger and bigger. And so maybe the organizations are scared that the gap is going to be too much time difference. I remember back in the days when we were, 2001, 2002, probably, I think we had won it twice or 3 times. And the Tour de France changed the rules of the team time trial, and they put like a cap on how much a team could lose because we were taking too much time. I think it's a great event, and it should be in the Grand Tours. And I don't have the answer of why it's not there. I don't know.
Just to play devil's advocate, and maybe I partially think the reason they're not there is you're to blame, Johan, and then also Team Sky, because what would have happened? Like there would have been no chance. Like Roman Bardet, Nairo Quintana, can you imagine like those teams, how much they would have lost to Team Sky in a long team time trial? And then think about UAE. Like, okay, Pogačar has a bad day in the mountains. The race is close. Well, he's got Juan Ayuso, he's got Joel Almeida, he's got Brandon McNulty, he's got Niels Paula, he's got him. They would put minutes into the next
not necessarily between the top teams. If you look UAE, Visma Lease Bike and Soudal Quickstep, the teams of the top 3 in the podium. I don't think there would be that much difference between those teams. You
think Soudal Quickstep could put together a team that could compete with?
Right, they would not win, but they would be close. They would be up there within a minute.
Well, I guess we haven't defined the distance. So that is the thing I like though here, and bring it back around. The Paris-Nice time trial, I feel like that is a lot of potential. Do you remember this from 2 years ago at Paris-Nice where they took everyone's real time?
Yeah. Like,
I don't know. I think you could do something interesting where it's like uphill, like there's an uphill component. It's those rules.
Well, I've read somewhere. I've seen a tentative schedule of what the Tour de France.
I saw this too.
Like.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a team time trial in there or not, but I've seen also somewhere a rumor that there's something revolutionary in one of the stages. So that could maybe hit team time trial with the real time for the leaders.
Well, I saw a League Tour route, and there was like an asterisk stage in the second week, and it was like something unique. And maybe that's a team time trial. The thing though is you kind of have to have the team time trial early in the race.
Yeah, you have
because if you had it in the site, what if someone has 3 teammates left?
Yeah,
it would be such a disadvantage. So
you have to have it between stage 4 and 6.
Yeah, that's the only, because I saw that same thing. I thought, that'd be interesting if the team time trial came back. I mean, at this point though, you might as well try it, right? Like, okay, gives the advantage to UAE. It's like, well, they would have had an advantage anyway. Do we think it would have changed the outcome of any Grand Tours? Definitely not the Giro, definitely not the Tour. The Vuelta it actually might have hurt the Vuelta if we think about it, because would Roglic have taken more time on...
Yeah, they had a strong team. And who was second? Was Enric Mas second?
Is a good question, actually. I think no. Ben O'Connor was second.
O'Connor, okay. They had a good team, but probably not a great team for Team Time Trial. But they had
could have helped him though for the podium. You didn't need it, but he probably would have been better than Movistar and EF, who were third and fourth.
Yeah, maybe.
But actually, Roglic won that race by more than I remember, 2:36. So yeah, it wouldn't have affected that. They would have been fine. Bring them back. Why not? We need something. And I guess you're right. Visma and UAE, those guys are so... I guess Soudal Quickstep will pencil. I mean, the problem is, would Remco just drop everyone on Soudal Quickstep? He'd be riding the Team Time Trial by himself because there's no draft.
I wouldn't want to be behind him. There's no draft.
No, not at all. Everyone should get €1 million bonus just for not getting dropped in that Team Time Trial. So last question. This is a good one from Nicholas. Hey guys, the question for Johan specifically, in simplest terms, can you explain the literal elements with which differentiate Tadej from the other riders? Does he just have stronger leg muscles, a stronger cardio system? Is he fueling more efficiently? Is it a combo of all of the above? And of these, which would contribute the most to that gap he has created to the other riders? It's amazingly rare to see such a performance gap in cycling, and I'm curious about the extent to which you think he just has a different physiology.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know what exactly sets him apart. As we said, he's a great talent since a very young age. What I see is the biggest difference, especially between Tadej and Jonas, is his ability to maintain a high cadence for a very long time. The cadence is unbelievable. I think I touched on it on our last podcast. Every single race he's won this year was between 92 and 97 RPM over the whole race, independently of how long it was. Jonas doesn't have, he has a good cadence, but not the same cadence. Now, high cadence works for some and not for others. It's not something that I pinpoint as the reason, but what I do know is that if you are able to have a high cadence, you are kind of protecting yourself from blowing up. If you can maintain that if you make that your trademark, you know that even if you're not in a great day, you're still going to be pretty good. So that's what sets him apart. Now, you could also argue, well, Remco has a great cadence also, more or less the same as Tadej. There's something with Pogačar's pedaling style that I haven't figured out yet. It looks amazing. It's so smooth. It looks easy. We've been talking about the shorter cranks. Nothing prevents Jonas or Remco or Primoz to try that. And maybe it doesn't work for them. Maybe it doesn't work for them. We don't know. So I think we're just, it's a combination of, first of all, his physical talent. He has been great since he started racing. His team, all the necessary resources you can think of are on board. His confidence, I think, for the moment, that's really what sets him apart from the others. He has the amazing confidence, and the others have doubts whether they can follow him or not. To really pinpoint one thing that what sets him apart, I don't really have the answer other than, he's a phenomenal rider. It's a once in a generation thing we're seeing. And I wouldn't want to be in the position of the other teams and his rivals. They're trying to figure out now, how the hell can we beat this guy?
Yeah, and he clearly does have a strong cardio system, which is the way, I personally, if you made me go out and ride at his cadence, I don't think I could do it. I'm just not efficient enough. I guess what's efficiency? Then you start to get into the weeds, but I just don't move oxygen around my body enough. And I would guess a lot of pros because he just has such a efficient cardio system and an efficient pedal stroke that he can generate massive power without putting a ton of strain on his legs, which really helps you over 3 weeks.
And then one thing I'm just thinking about now is that, and I'm just saying this from what I see at the races, right? And observations. No, I have no scientific data to back that up, but I'm pretty sure it would be the case. To me, it seems like his recovery capacity is better than the rest.
Yeah.
If you look at the Tour de France this year, the first week he was good, but he was not that dominant. He was a tiny bit better than Jonas. And then he just kept getting better and better. If you go back to last year, for example, where he was in the situation of Jonas, he had a very deficient preparation towards the Tour after his elbow fracture or wrist fracture, whatever. He got his ass kicked on that stage over the Marie Blanc. And the day after, he came back incredibly, and he dropped Jonas and he won that stage.
Yeah.
And then when he really got his ass kicked on Col de la Loze, you would think, okay, that this is it. He's empty. He's done. There's no way he's going to get dropped tomorrow. He did not get dropped. He attacked, didn't drop Jonas, but won the stage, the last mountain stage. Normally you don't recover from stuff like that. And so he has this ability to recover, which I have not seen in other riders. Whenever, let's say, for example, to take the case of Remco, last year's Vuelta, he was the favorite. He had won it. He was the favorite, had a bad day, did not recover from it. I mean, he did go on and win 2 or 3 stages, but he did not recover to a level where he could actually compete with the big favorites in the mountains. He won those stages from breakaways. So I think that's one of the things that sets him apart, his better capacity to recover than his rivals.
Is he getting better in the Tour, or is he getting less worse? Like, is he just maintaining that first week level through 3 weeks?
We don't know. I think he got better. I mean, it's difficult to say. We would have to check the performances, right? And the numbers from the performance. I mean, it can look like you get better because you're getting less tired and the others get more tired than you. But that still makes you, basically you get better because you get less fatigued than the rest. So you're better than the rest.
Yeah. It definitely seems like he got better, not even relatively, objectively better at the Giro. Like that third week, he was so good. Interestingly enough, in the Peter Attia interview, he said stage 20, that stage 20 win you referenced, that's what gave him the confidence to come back this year and like challenge Jonas to win the Tour. So oftentimes, when they're like, why is Jonas winning so much? Like, what's he doing? This isn't just a hermetically sealed Tour de France. Like, one tour leads into the other tours. And if he's crushing everyone in 2024, maybe that gives him a mental edge in 2025. So if you want him to sit up and let everyone else win, that might be one of the reasons why he's not doing that.
Yeah. Agreed.
Well, Johan, that's the end of our listener questions for this week. Again, info@wedo.team. Send those in. We'll get to them next week. Do you have anything else to add before we get going?
No, thanks, Spencer. And thank you for sending in questions to our listeners and our viewers, and keep them coming.
All right. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Okay.